It began as a joke. A billionaire, sitting in a quiet restaurant, smiled at the waitress and asked if she had any financial advice for him. The people around him laughed. But when she opened her mouth, the room went silent. Her answer changed the way he saw money and people. This is the story of how a single question, meant as a tease, turned into one of the most humbling lessons in a billionaire's life. His name was Harold Whitman. He was a self-made billionaire, founder of one of the largest investment firms in the United States. He had built his empire through long hours, sharp instincts, and an unwavering belief that success was measured by growth. By the time he reached his 60s, he had everything: wealth, status, and control. But beneath it all, there was a kind of emptiness he couldn't name. One afternoon, Harold stopped at a small family-owned restaurant on the outskirts of Atlanta, Georgia. He wasn't there for business, just a quiet meal away from the world of meetings and markets. The place was modest. No marble floors or expensive wine lists, just the smell of fresh bread and the sound of slow conversation. The waitress who served him was named Angela Brooks, 34 years old, a single mother of two, working 2 jobs to pay off her student loans and take care of her children. She had once dreamed of a career in finance herself. She studied economics in college. But when her mother became sick, her plans changed. She left school to care for her family and never went back. Angela didn't know who Harold was. To her, he was just another customer, polite, quiet, and a little tired. She brought his coffee, smiled, and went about her work. As Harold ate, he watched her move through the restaurant. She handled each table with care, even when customers were impatient or rude. There was a calmness in the way she carried herself, a kind of quiet confidence that caught his attention. When she came by to refill his cup, Harold made a casual remark about her composure. He said she should be running his company instead of waiting tables. She smiled and answered playfully, and for the first time that day, he laughed. Then, half joking, he asked, "So tell me, what financial advice would you give a billionaire like me?" He expected a laugh, maybe a clever comeback, but Angela didn't laugh. She paused, looked him in the eye, and said, "I'd tell him that money can multiply, but time doesn't." The sound in the restaurant seemed to fade. She kept speaking, not with bitterness, but with calm conviction. She said most people spend their lives chasing more money, more recognition, more control, but they forget to spend what they already have: their time, their health, their relationships. She said money only has meaning when it's used to make life richer in ways that numbers can't measure. Harold sat still. The words struck him harder than he expected. It wasn't advice from a book or a consultant. It was wisdom shaped by struggle. He asked how she came to think that way. Angela told him about her mother, how they had saved for years to open a small bakery together. They were just months away from signing a lease when her mother was diagnosed with cancer. Every dollar they'd saved went toward medical bills. Her mother passed away before their dream began. Angela said that loss taught her something she never forgot, that success is not about how much money you make, but how much time you get to share with the people you love. She said softly, "You can always make more money, but you can't make more time." Harold didn't respond right away. He finished his meal in silence, deep in thought. When he stood to leave, he left a large tip on the table, thanked her, and walked out without saying much more. But before he left, he asked for her name. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at the restaurant. It was addressed to Angela Brooks. Inside was a short note written in neat handwriting and a check for $50,000. The letter was signed by Harold Whitman. He wrote that it wasn't charity. It was an investment in her dream and in the wisdom she had unknowingly shared. He wanted her to use it to open that bakery she once talked about, if she still believed in it. Angela thought it was a scam at first. She even called the company to confirm, but it was real. Harold had meant every word. Months later, Brooks and Carver Bakery opened its doors in Atlanta. It was small, but full of warmth. Angela ran it with the same calm focus she once had in that restaurant. Her employees were mostly single parents and students, people who needed a chance more than a paycheck. Her guiding rule was simple: make good food, treat people kindly, and make sure everyone who walks in feels seen. One morning, Harold visited. He sat quietly at a corner table and ordered a cup of coffee and a slice of bread pudding. Angela didn't recognize him right away. When she did, she smiled and thanked him, not for the money, but for believing in her dream. He told her that he was the one who should be thankful. He said her words had done something his fortune never could. They gave him clarity. For years after that, Harold spoke often about that day. In interviews, he referred to it simply as the conversation with the waitress. He said it changed how he saw leadership, wealth, and purpose. He started a foundation that funded small, community-led businesses, especially those owned by women and minorities. And when asked why, he said, "Because some of the smartest people I've ever met don't wear suits. Some wear aprons." Angela's Bakery became a local favorite. She never expanded beyond what she could manage. She said she didn't need to. Growth was never the goal. Peace was. When a journalist once asked her how it felt to be discovered by a billionaire, she smiled and said, "I wasn't discovered. I was just finally heard." Her story spread quietly, shared by people who saw themselves in her, people who worked hard, gave everything they had, and still believed that life was worth more than money. And Harold's story changed, too. He became known not just as a billionaire, but as a man who learned how to listen. He often told younger entrepreneurs that his greatest teacher wasn't a professor or a business partner. It was a waitress with a lesson about time. In the end, the story wasn't about money at all. It was about perspective, about how wisdom can come from the most unexpected places, and how the right words, spoken at the right moment, can shift an entire life. A billionaire once asked a waitress for financial advice as a joke. What he got instead was a truth he'd been chasing his whole life: that wealth isn't about how much you earn, but about how deeply you understand what truly matters.